Hello friends, welcome. Friends, satellite communication is an happening sector. Worldwide, this technology is heavily used for providing broadband connectivity in remote locations where there is no way to get any kind of terrestrial connectivity. One of the main player which is involved in offering these services is Starlink. In India, they have been discussing with the regulator and the licensor for last 6 years and still they have not been able to offer these services in India. And even though they have not been able to offer this service in India, they have gone to the space regulator of India seeking approval for their generation 2 satellites, which will empower not only their broadband connectivity, enhance their broadband connectivity, but also empower the smartphones on ground with the capability to talk to the satellites. So, friends, many of the viewers will find this quite confusing. What is going on? Because this dimension, there are various dimensions to this whole story. And there are regulators which is involved, licenses are involved, foreign players are involved, local mobile companies are involved, and their interest can either be in alignment or they can be in conflict. Even Reliance Jio has applied to the Indian regulator for creating their own satellite network. So, to cut the clutter, I thought of bringing a video series. So, in this series, 2 videos have already been recorded. So, one I recorded day before yesterday, another video that I recorded yesterday. The first video was about why Starlink went to in space for seeking approval for their generation 2 satellites. And the second video was the spectrum war, the spectrum strategy of various players, whether they are in alignment or they are in conflict. The third video I am recording just now. And by the way, friends, this is the most important video because this is going to tell you why Starlink will find it easy to offer direct mobile connectivity using their satellite, generation 2 satellites, than offering broadband connectivity. And you guys will be surprised to hear this, that why mobile connectivity will be easier under a certain license framework than getting approval directly for broadband connectivity, where it appears that there are certain security concerns. So today's video will cut this clutter and explain to you why Starlink is not getting approval for their broadband connectivity and why I believe that it will be much easier for them to get approval for smartphone connectivity through their satellites, subject to certain licensing condition or framework. So this is the video, which I have right in front of your screen. Why D2D is easier to control? Because ultimately it is all about control. The Indian authorities are kind of scared about a foreign player coming and offering service which they can't control. That's the crux. And why for broadband the control is difficult and why for mobile the control is going to be easier is what we are going to discuss in this video, right? So just be with me till the end and you will find this video very, very interesting. The first thing which I want to say before I go to the next slide, broadband is proprietary terminal, whereas direct to device is ordinary smartphone, which is standard based. So if you really want to have a direct standard based control over the terminal, this is the terminal on ground which is talking to each other, then it is very difficult because the whole satellite configuration has to be changed because there are no standard as far as broadband is concerned, because the terminal that Starlink is offering, the user terminal that Starlink is offering is proprietary. Whereas smartphone you can purchase from off the shelf. It is being made by various manufacturers based on specification which is written by 3GPP, right? So let's look at from a security from the security problem to a practical model. So I did a video on 5th May 2025. So here is my video. So I'll show you the glimpse of this video, that Starlink approval is delayed in India, security gateway control jamming reality explained. So I'll paste a link of the video in the description. Then I did the other video. Let me just show you the other video I did. I told you that the approval gates. This is the link of this video here. is the other video which I recorded, day before yesterday. So this is and the third video is this video, that India's D2D spectrum battle. So all the spectrum I have spoken about. So here now we are going to talk about video 3, security and operation. So why broadband is harder to secure? This is the focus of this video. Let's understand this. The reason broadband is harder to secure is because the terminal and the satellite and the gateway is all under one foreign control domain. Here, no third party is involved. Indian telecom player has no play in the terminal sale. Terminal basically configuration, because the terminal will be configured by Starlink themselves. They will enable and disable this terminal. There is no other control which is possible, except for the fact that the Indian regulator can tell Starlink to follow certain rules. But if Starlink decides not to follow these rules, right, then these terminals, if they exist in India, they can still operate, and Starlink may decide under very, very unnatural condition not to listen to Indian regulators. And that is the reason why Indian regulators are wary of allowing Starlink, because I will show you how Starlink can bypass Indian gateway and terminate this internet connection, not to Indian gateway, but from a different gateway using inter-satellite links. Okay. So let's see how it happens. Let's say this is a mobile terminal, or not mobile terminal, satellite broadband terminal. It talks to the satellite and it's supposed to get out from an Indian gateway, right? That is how it should be. And then it goes to the Indian network, where all kind of legal interception control exists. But there are other satellites in the sky which Starlink has. So instead of terminating to the Indian gateway, the required Indian gateway, this broadband terminal can go through a different satellite, and via a different satellite, it can go to another gateway located in some other country. So this routing of the terminal of the internet traffic is directly under control of Starlink. So they may, under normal circumstances, follow Indian rules. But if India, under very, very unnatural circumstances, become adverse to Starlink because of any reason whatsoever, just like what is happening in Iran and other parts of the world, Starlink, when they have a lot of terminals in India, they can decide not to terminate the internet traffic to Indian gateway. And they may not decide to listen to Indian regulators. That is the main concern, why Indian regulators are not very comfortable in allowing satellite broadband, where end-to-end control lies with the satellite player. Do you get it? So there is no Indian SIM switch that can disconnect the dish, because this dish that you see here, when it is brought in India, it can be authorized or unauthorized. It requires a foreign activation. There is no Indian telecom operator enabling this dish. So when it requires a foreign activation, the deactivation of this dish will also be done by the same satellite player which is activating it. So if the Indian operators goes and request Starlink that please deactivate this dish, which is kind of playing rogue, then Starlink may decide not to listen to the Indian regulator, because Indian government has no control, right? Because these are space objects. You can go and you cannot fire those space objects and pull them off the sky. There are so many satellites, right? Unlike in case of terrestrial network, the network is directly under the Indian jurisdiction. That is where the problem is. So satellite, now comes the D2D model. And why I believe the D2D model is much easier to control. And therefore, if a certain structure is followed, then Indian regulator will find it easy to give permission to the D2D model. So let's understand what the D2D model will do in the structure which will enable the Indian regulator to grant permission. So here is the mobile phone, friends, and here is Starlink. And then here is the Indian service control, right, which will belong to an Indian mobile player. So they will have the SIM, because this phone is a standard device. the SIM will belong to the Indian mobile operator. Starlink will not directly offer services to the mobile phone. What they will do? They will only give space radio capacity. Though these satellites are capable of routing, they act like a base station. But the authentication of this mobile phone has to happen through the Indian mobile network operator who will bill, who will provide legal interception, and it will do routing. So unless and until this mobile operator authenticates this mobile phone, which is standard in case of terrestrial network, it also happens like that. And the SIM has got a secret, key, which is to be sent through the mobile network and through the satellite network to the mobile operator's control center, and it will authenticate, and then only the service will get enabled, right? So only the authorized Indian network over India. So we have got the satellite in the sky. They talk to the Indian mobile network, and the satellite player is only acting as a capacity. It is only giving capacity to the Indian player. It is not involved in authentication. It is not involved in routing. It is not involved in anything else, legal interception. Everything has to happen through the Indian mobile operator. Though there is no Starlink retail PLNM, there is no Starlink SIM. Okay. So the Indian code decides who gets the service. So how it happens? This is the satellite, this is the mobile phone, this is the SIM. So what will happen is that the MNO who is wanting to authenticate this mobile phone will seek a secret information which is stored in the SIM, and this secret information will be sent via the satellite network to the mobile operator network. If it matches, it will allow the mobile phone to talk to the satellite network. If it does not match, it will simply reject. Right? So that's how it is going to work. So all authorized service anchored in India. So the question here is that Starlink can still, if they want to, offer a service to any other mobile phone which does not have registered Indian mobile to the Indian mobile operator. They can still do so, right? It's not that Starlink doesn't have the capability. For example, if a foreign SIM is traveling to India and Starlink broadcasts the PLNM of the foreign network, that foreign device can hook onto Starlink. That is possible. That is even today possible. Even without any kind of license, Starlink can enable broadband equipment, their broadband terminal, as well as mobile phone, which have been smuggled into India. They can still do it. They don't require a license, right? So as long as they play by the rule, right, what is happening is that the Indian regulator gets control of this mobile phone. They can block the mobile phone. They can do whatever they want, just like what they do in case of a terrestrial network. So this mobile phone, through the satellite, through the Indian gateway, will deliver voice, SMS, and internet, right? So the government will do what? Government will not go to Starlink to do all the security related job that they want to do. The government control will be without asking Starlink, because Starlink is only providing capacity. It does not provide anything else, Starlink or any other satellite operator. So this is only radio capacity only, right? So we have lawful interception for block and suspend. They will simply go to the Indian mobile operator who will be seeking capacity from Starlink to block their network, right? Block the mobile phone, or block or suspend or give legal interception, right? So selective control in normal operation. See, MNO, block SIM, block device, disable, and emergency off. No satellite operator approval will be required. Though the satellite operator has got full capability to steer the mobile call, because those satellite will almost act like a base station. But the authentication is done by the Indian mobile operator. So therefore, if a certain device is playing rogue, then the Indian mobile operator will block that mobile phone. So even if Starlink is connected to the mobile phone, still that mobile phone will be out of service, except if that mobile phone is a foreign device which has been smuggled in India with a foreign PLNM which is getting broadcasted by the satellite. Only in that case that device will work, which it can work even today without a license. If Starlink decide to act rogue and do not decide to follow the Indian government instruction, right? So foreign SIM and Indian rules. So in this situation, if a foreign SIM enters India, right, then we have to tell Starlink that you have to follow Indian rules, because no PLNM should get broadcasted other than the Indian PLNM, Indian operator PLNM. You can't broadcast anything other than the Indian operator PLNM. If a foreign PLNM gets broadcasted, Indian authorities will come to know. But if Indian authorities and Starlink has a strained relationship, then Indian authorities can do nothing, which they can do anyway. They cannot do nothing, even if they don't give it license, because they can't control Starlink. But the mobile phones which are operating in India, which belongs to a mobile operator like Airtel or Vodafone Idea or Reliance Jio, those can be terminated because those SIM-based control lies with the Indian operator. Right? So as I told you, the license cannot physically control the foreign spacecraft. So that we have to be conscious about. By just giving a license or no license, we cannot guarantee that there will be no service operating in India, whether it is broadband or it is a mobile phone. But once a license is granted, all the devices which are registered under the name of a mobile operator, those devices can be controlled by the Indian government, which we want, right? And if a rogue device enters or gets smuggled in India, we can trace those devices, or at least ask Starlink, because Starlink definitely wants to do business in India, not to transmit foreign PLNM and route those devices through the compliant mode, right? Just like happens in case of a normal roaming, right? Now, the point here is that there is another very, very important point, which I have missed out or I have not spoken till now. Let's say you want to block or deny services without blocking the phone. For example, if you really want to stop mobile services in a particular area, if it was broadband dish, it becomes extremely difficult to do a area-wise broadband service to block broadband services, right? Because why? Because these terminals are very directed, right? So even if you have some kind of a jammer which is trying to jam these services in this area, this jammer will not be able to do so either to the satellite or to the disk, because this is basically transmit at a directed the transmission is directed to the satellite, and it is actually it will be reasonably high power. Whereas mobile phone transmitted only 23 dB, and these are all omnidirectional. So it will be much easier to jam a mobile device than a satellite disk, right? So therefore, if let's say a phone is talking to the satellite and you want to jam the device without blocking that specific device, it will be almost like jamming a terrestrial device, terrestrial mobile network, just like the government do in many situations where they don't want the mobiles to operate, like in case of in case of the Prime Minister office or the Parliament, where you don't want mobile phones to operate, in jail. So here also the same thing you can do, but for broadband it becomes a little difficult, right? So the use of phone, so the other point is that the phone is already in the pocket, right? That is standard, whereas broadband is a dedicated terminal controlled by the satellite. Since the phone is a standard device under 3GPP, the carrier can configure it, the modem firmware can be rewritten, OS support is a standard support, and there can be a satellite indicator for compatible bands and supported device. And this is not a dedicated, a device like broadband or satellite phones. So phone makers enable and the MNO controls, which is not typically the case of satellite terminals, where it is directly controlled by the satellite player, right? So these are the three security conditions. First is that it has to be a wholesale capacity only. The Starlink or any other satellite player cannot control the customer. It has to be an Indian authorized PLNMN. All SIM will be directed through Indian core. It cannot get, bypassed anywhere else. Even if the satellite player has the capability to bypass or route the traffic, you can suspend this SIM by disallowing this SIM to operate, by preventing this SIM to register in the network, right? Because that control lies with the mobile phone. Starlink supply radio capacity, not retail mobile services. Then the traffic has to be anchored in India, right? You cannot allow any other PLNM to get broadcasted. MNO blocking and lawful interception, the Starlink need not be approached. You can directly ask the Indian mobile operator to block and lawful. And you can do a denial of service by using a jammer, much easier than use for the satellite-based broadband, which are much difficult to control and block. The normal control is selective, emergency denial is area level. So our customer relationship is the Indian MNO only. The customer is, even if Starlink capacity is being used, it will be all routed by the Indian operator, either Vodafone Idea or Airtel or BSNL or Reliance Jio, right? So this is the customer. So the SIM, customer, billing, compliance, everything is going to be done by Indian mobile operator. Starlink is only going to get paid for the capacity that it is providing to the Indian operator to enable the services. So ultimately, the conclusion is D2D is the least resistant security path compared to broadband. That's why, friends, I wanted you to focus on this video, that it will be easier for the Indian government to allow D2D by using that SCN model, where the satellite player is only providing capacity and the Indian mobile operator is, connecting to the customer directly. So foreign capacity and Indian services and Indian control, so that the Indian government doesn't have to worry about these phones ultimately get used directly by the satellite players without if they are in conflict, or the relationship between the satellite players and the Indian government is strained. So that's all in this video, friends. I hope that you like this video useful, and thank you for watching till the end, and I'll come back with a new video on a new topic next time.